So my name is Panos Vouzis. I'm a co-founder at NetBeez. And today I'm talking about a brief history of our company and of course our product, give you a brief introduction, and then we'll have of course some live demos later on. So the company was founded in 2013 in Pittsburgh, PA, and we got our first funding from the Alpha Lab Startup Accelerator. And from the very beginning, our mission was to reduce time and resources required to solve any user experience issues. To give some background here, our CEO, Stefan Gridelli, he was a network engineer in his previous life for a big healthcare organization. He had several tools, sizable IT budget, but regardless of that, they would, on a daily basis, they would face problems that they couldn't detect with their monitoring tools. Often the user would report an issue. They would have to involve the user to troubleshoot the ticket, get information, etc. So he quit his job and he started NetBeez. He recruited us. And the idea was to build a product that gives you this end user experience information on your dashboard, right? So you know what the users are doing, what they're seeing, regardless of all other, monitor tools you have, and might not give that picture. And the way we do this is by using sensors in your network. So the sensors are connected at the access layer where the user connects at the branch office over Wi-Fi WAN network. And now, of course, as of last year, we have agents that can run on the user's device and collect the information for actually the user experience from the actual user's device. But also we have sensors that cover other parts of your network for cloud, virtual, and now so many vendors have hosting service on their hardware, and we're able to cover all aspects and give you this complete user experience on your fingertips. Just to put things in perspective a little bit, where we stand in the network monitoring space. Of course, SNMP has been around for decades now. We're not replacing SNMP, right? You need to know what your routers and switches are doing, bytes in and out from interfaces, but that doesn't tell you much about the user experience. Other tools like Passive, for example, based on network protocols, etc., give you more information about what's going with the traffic of your network, but mostly are focused on understanding top talkers, application monitoring, and they don't give you the crystal clear picture of the user experience. Packet capturing, of course, is as detailed as you can get. You can get down to the byte level, what happened in your network, but it's difficult to scale with the amount of data it collects. When you need the data, it's there to use it, but on a daily basis, not really useful, right? It's cumbersome to use, and it's used mainly for troubleshooting with expensive tabs on premise usually. And finally, I would say the last frontier of monitoring is the user. A user at the end of the day is the one that we care about, right? And they're going to open tickets. They're going to complain about something, and then that ticket usually is going to go through several layers of support until it finds the right person, and then that person will work their way down, talk to the user, collect information, try to figure out what happened, when it started, when it stopped, etc. So with NetBeez, we try to close this gap in the user experience monitoring. And we have seen four main, I would say, benefits, right, and use case of what our monitoring tool does, the sensor-based monitoring. So in a nutshell, the way it works is, again, we deploy sensors around your network that do continuous synthetic monitoring. So they run active monitoring tests, measuring latency, bandwidth, VoIP quality, Wi-Fi metrics. And with this continuous data, you have the ability to know exactly what's going on in your network, and even the ability to detect issues early on when they're intermittent, before they become catastrophic enough that a user is going to report it, right? Usually some issues, show up in a way that might not be, completely visible to the user. And when the user detects them, it's too late, right? So you have the data there to detect issues that happen off hours, that you don't have users to detect them. And you know when the problem started, when it stopped, and if it's intermittent, for example. In terms of fault isolation, by covering all your network edges with these with sensors, you have the ability to understand who is affected by an issue. If it's something isolated to a specific branch location, if it's an issue showing up only on your Wi-Fi network, if it's an issue that is affecting everybody, right? That, of course, is a very first important step to focus your troubleshooting and understand how important an issue is, right? And guide your way through the process. In terms of performance monitoring, now all the data we collect, of course, is very granular, raw data that you can consume with our API, or you can slice and dice with our own reporting functionality. And you can share reporting about the user experience with all the constituents in your organization to understand what's the kind of status of your user experience. And finally, all this information we collect, of course, they synthesize the end user experience, right? So you know if your users have access to the right applications over VPN, over split tunnel that they need to get their job done. And it's what we are trying again to complete the picture in the monitoring space arena, where this information usually has to be derived either by implying data from other sources or usually talking to users, right, to understand if an issue is something that is affecting only them, multiple users, etc. So a little bit more detail here about our sensors. So we have a wide range of sensors that help you cover every corner of your network. Okay, so in 2013, we started a year later, we launched our product, and the first sensor we deployed, we released was a hardware agent that was focused mostly on the WAN network. Soon after, we released our virtual and cloud agents as a natural extension of that. And then I think 2 years later was the first Wi-Fi sensor that came out from us. That was, the Wi-Fi sensor is the one sensor I would say that you need the actual physical sensor to get information from your Wi-Fi network. For one, now we have also, hosted agents, we have virtual agents, you have Docker agents you can use, but the Wi-Fi sensor is the one that actually the physical appliance is necessary. Now, in terms of more software type of agents, we have a Linux agent that you can install on an existing Linux host. If you wanna, you have a server, application server, DHCP server, DNS server, and you wanna put an agent on it, you can install a Debian package. With Docker, of course, now you can run it anywhere, Windows, Mac, Linux, you name it. And then obviously we support all the cloud providers. We can give you an Amazon AMI, spin it up, whatever region you want, or we can host a server for you, right? Whatever region you want to monitor from.
Panos, sorry to interrupt. Do you also support Android and iOS on those?
You mean the software agent that installs the user device?
Yes.
For now, we have Windows and Mac OS. Okay. I'll talk about it later more, and of course, Panico is going to have a live demo of that. In terms of hosting now, of course, 5 or 6 years ago, several companies started offering hosting capabilities on their hardware. We started with the Cisco ISR first, and then, of course, now Cisco released their whole 9000 series hardware. And actually, we had a presentation at Cisco Live, well, when we had live events, right, 2 years ago, again, with another panel of delegates. And we had a joint presentation. We described the hosting of the Docker agent, right? Of course, that can be done either through DNA or can be done individually through, managing the switches manually. Actually, we recently had a customer that deployed 80 of these agents, software all, host on 9300s, I think. And they deployed like 80 agents like in a couple of days without hiccups. Extreme use different uses, like of course I think KVM virtualization, and then again more and more vendors come out with these hosting capabilities, and whatever environment they use, as long as you have the standard ones, you can spin up an actual software agent on the device, so you don't need the hardware anymore. You have an agent on the access layer the same way you have with the hardware device. And then finally, of course, we have the agents we released last summer for Windows and Mac OS. As of now, of course, after COVID hit, WAN and Wi-Fi, on-campus Wi-Fi become not less important, but less of a priority, right? Because everybody was struggling to support people working from home, and customers came to us. We're like, okay, guys, great what you are doing, but we kind of have a different priority right now. Can we do the same thing with, our folks working from home? And within 6 months, we released the first version of our endpoint agent for Windows and Mac. And as of last week, the second version where we support Wi-Fi metrics and also better voice monitoring. More of that later. So with this slide, I want to make the point with all the different types of agents we have. We offer a comprehensive coverage of all your network edges, right? If you're on campus, if you're on premises, you're going to have the Wi-Fi sensor or a WAN sensor, right? If you're working from home, a Mac or Windows sensor on your actual device can do synthetic monitoring over your VPN, split tunnel or not, test voice performance monitoring, application, and then of course for cloud environment, on-premise or on public clouds, again, you can spin up a NetBeez agent and be able to run this end-to-end monitoring that captures the user experience on the dashboard, which can be on-premise again, or can be hosted as any other SaaS application on the cloud. Up to you, depending on your security requirements and etc. And finally, with this slide, I want to make a point about the verticals we see that are the most critical and the ones that find the most benefit from what we do. The first one is financial services. That one actually popped up in the radar lately. It's because of the work from home situation. Right now, all these companies send all their supporting agents, all their people, as many as they could, work from home. And for them, any minute counts, right? If a support employee cannot get their voice calls through, their get bad reviews, so they want to make sure that everybody is doing okay. And of course, these people are not technical. They don't have to be, right? Before they were on campus, everything was being taken care of for them. Now they're at home with their consumer-grade router, over their local ISP, etc. And with the work from home agent, they install it on their laptop, either by themselves, they download the installer, click next, 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 or is done, of course, centrally. It's a managed device with tools like Intune or other tools. And they can capture this experience from the home environment towards all the service and tools they use to get their job done. In healthcare and higher ed, we see interest in the WAN, but Wi-Fi, of course, is very important there. Higher ed, of course, now is, students are mostly at home, but under normal conditions, Wi-Fi, of course, part of the daily curriculum and needed to, do their work and homework. And healthcare, of course, they're like high value employees, doctors, nurses, and also very critical equipment, right? That sustain, actually patients and gather biometrical data information. And all these now are connected over Wi-Fi. If you want to call them IoT devices, or they need to have connectivity, right? It's very critical, and it's very important for them to monitor their Wi-Fi network and WAN as well, of course. And finally, high tech. There we see a sweet spot with larger, medium to large companies with several thousands of employees, I would say, and global presence. The important thing here is the global presence, where you might have presence in dozens or hundreds of, like locations around the world in different time zones. And usually these, all these remote branches are supported by a localized NOC that is somewhere in the US or in Europe. But the important thing here is that there's a time difference between the people you support and where the NOC is. And in order to be able to understand how the users are doing at those locations where your time zone might not overlap, and you have to troubleshoot issues, you have to keep an eye on them, you have to support them, it's becoming really challenging. And having these sensors to capture user experience really helps a lot to make your life, daily operations much, much easier and more efficient.